Welcome back to 1337, the Future of Podcast. I'm Max.
And I'm Sophia.
And we are ready for another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at ancient mysteries and lost civilizations.
That's exciting.
It is. And we've got a ton of sources. We're talking historical accounts, archaeological finds, geological studies. We even have some mythology and astronomical observations.
Wow, that's quite a mix. What are we hoping to uncover with all of this?
Well, we want to see if there's any evidence for really old, advanced cultures, like way older than what's currently accepted. Maybe challenge some timelines,
I like it. It's fascinating how these different fields, like you mentioned, are all starting to sort of come together, offering pieces of this huge historical puzzle. And it's not just myths and legends anymore. There's actual scientific data emerging that's really making us rethink what we thought we knew.
Exactly. So, to kick things off, let's talk about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Around 12,800 years ago, there was this sudden and dramatic climate shift on Earth. It's called the Younger Dryas. But some of our sources suggest that this might not have been just a random event.
Right.
What if it was actually triggered by a comet impact? What are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, the evidence for an impact event is growing. Researchers have found things like nanodiamonds and melted minerals. They've even found potential impact craters that all date back to that time period. And when you combine that with the fact that flood myths are found in so many different cultures around the world, it does make you wonder if those stories are actually rooted in a real event. Maybe they witnessed this cataclysmic event.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, if a comet impact really did happen back then, it would have been devastating.
Yeah.
We could be talking about global floods, mass extinctions, the planet plunging back into ice age conditions. It's almost unimaginable. But here's really gets me thinking. If there were advanced civilizations around before the Younger Dryas, what happened to them?
Right.
Did any trace of them survive this event? What kind of knowledge might they have had?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Maybe some of the incredible things we see in ancient cultures, those seemingly impossible feats of engineering and construction, are they echoes of a lost knowledge? Something passed down from a time before this catastrophe.
It's definitely something to think about. And speaking of things that seem almost impossible, let's move on to Gunung Padang in Indonesia. This place is amazing. It's a massive pyramid-like structure that has stirred up a lot of controversy. And recent research suggests it could be far, far older than initially thought.
Absolutely. Using techniques like ground-penetrating radar and core drilling, researchers have discovered that the structure goes much deeper than the surface layers. Some even think it could date back over 22,000 years, which, if true, would completely change our understanding of human civilization. It would mean there was a civilization before the last ice age.
It's almost like we're uncovering something that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It challenges everything we thought we knew. But as you said, there's a lot of controversy surrounding Gunung Padang. Why is that? It seems like anytime evidence emerges that challenges the established timeline, people get really skeptical.
Well, it's understandable, right? I mean, these are radical ideas. It can be tough to accept something that goes against everything you've been taught. But I think it's super important to be open to new discoveries and to question what we think we know about the past, even if it means having to rewrite the history books.
I totally agree. And speaking of rewriting history, let's shift gears to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. This site is just mind-blowing. Dating back to 9600 BC, it's the oldest known monumental structure in the world. It's got these amazing T-shaped pillars, all covered in intricate animal carvings. And there's evidence that suggests that the builders had a level of astronomical knowledge that's pretty unexpected for people living over 11,000 years ago. What do you find most remarkable about this site?
Well, it definitely throws a wrench in our typical understanding of how complex societies developed. Here we have this site predating agriculture, pottery, even the invention of the wheel, and yet they're creating these huge, intricate structures. And one pillar in particular, Pillar 43, has gotten a lot of attention. It seems that the carvings on it might actually represent astronomical symbols, maybe even linked to the precession of the equinoxes.
Hold on. Precession? That's a pretty complex astronomical concept, isn't it? How could people living back then have known about that?
You're telling me. And that's what makes it so fascinating. Imagine the Earth spinning like a top. But over really long periods, that axis of spin actually wobbles a little bit. This wobble causes the stars to shift very gradually in the night sky. That's precession. And it takes about 26,000 years for that wobble to make a full cycle. So if the carvings on Pillar 43 are about precession, it means the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not only aware of this incredibly subtle astronomical phenomenon, but that they built it into their worldview, maybe even their rituals.
Wow. So what we're looking at might not just be some random collection of pillars, but a deliberate structure designed with astronomical events in mind. And if that's true, what else might be hidden in the design of these ancient sites? What other knowledge could be encoded there that we haven't figured out yet?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it makes you think. And it also raises the possibility that Göbekli Tepe was more than just a place of worship. Maybe it was a center for knowledge sharing, a place where advanced ideas were exchanged, perhaps even knowledge inherited from a much earlier time.
Right, that's fascinating. Okay, so we've got potential evidence of a lost civilization at Gunung Padang and then Göbekli Tepe, which seems to rewrite the timeline for human development. But before we jump to any conclusions, let's zoom out a bit. Our sources point to some really interesting similarities between megalithic sites all over the world. What are some of the most compelling connections you see?
Well, one of the things that jumps out at me is how certain motifs and architectural features pop up again and again, even though these sites are separated by huge distances. Like, take the hand positions on the Easter Island Moai and compare them to the Göbekli Tepe pillars. The resemblance is striking. And then you have these distinctive belts that appear on figures in Tiwanaku, Easter Island, and Göbekli Tepe. Even the animal motifs, especially serpents, found at Göbekli Tepe, are incredibly similar to those at Cotimbo in the Andes. It's hard to believe those are just coincidences.
It's almost as if these cultures were drawing from some shared source of inspiration or knowledge. But how is that even possible? I mean, we're talking about cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years. Do our sources shed any light on how this transmission might have happened?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. One concept that really stands out is this idea of navels of the earth. It appears in several cultures, like the Inca in Cusco, Easter Island, Tiwanaku, even Göbekli Tepe.
Navels of the earth. What does that mean exactly?
It suggests these locations were seen as special points of connection, like between the earthly realm and the heavens. Maybe even places where knowledge was given or received, you know?
So are we talking about a literal, physical, lost civilization that spread its influence all over the globe? Or is it more about the spread of ideas and knowledge through myths and symbols? Maybe oral traditions that traveled across vast distances in huge spans of time?
It's a really fascinating debate, and our sources present strong arguments for both possibilities. Some lean towards the idea of a physically advanced civilization that existed way before what our current history tells us. Others focus more on the power of myths and oral traditions, saying they can preserve knowledge across thousands of years. Even if there wasn't a single global civilization, the idea that ancient cultures were sharing ideas and knowledge across continents is pretty mind-blowing in itself.
Yeah, it really makes you realize how much we still don't know about the past, right?
No.
And how connected these ancient cultures may have been. But if these myths and symbols really are a way of transmitting knowledge through time, how did they do it? I mean, how do you encode complex information like that? And how do we even begin to decipher it after all this time?
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it? It's like trying to solve a puzzle that's thousands of years old. But some researchers are making progress. They're finding some pretty interesting clues. For example, there are Australian Aboriginal myths that describe a time when the coastline was much further out than it is today. They even talk about a time when the shoreline connected to the Great Barrier Reef.
Wow.
And the remarkable thing is that this actually lines up with scientific evidence of sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age.
So it's not just a story. The myth is actually preserving accurate geographical information that would have only been known by people who saw those ancient landscapes firsthand. It's like a window into the deep past.
Exactly. And it suggests that these stories were carefully preserved and passed down, generation after generation, carrying with them a piece of truth about a world that's long gone. It's a testament to the power of oral tradition to keep the past alive, to act as a kind of ancestral memory.
That gives me chills. But it's not just flood myths, right? We've got Göbekli Tepe with its hints of advanced astronomical knowledge. Do we see similar evidence of encoded knowledge in other ancient monuments?
Oh, absolutely. Our sources highlight some pretty convincing evidence of sophisticated astronomical knowledge embedded in ancient myths and monuments all around the world. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, for example. There's a growing body of research suggesting that the pyramids were designed with a deep understanding of, you guessed it, precession.
Wait, precession again. That's the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, right? Are you telling me that the ancient Egyptians understood this too, thousands of years ago?
The evidence is certainly pointing in that direction. It looks like they may have actually encoded this knowledge into the structure of the pyramids themselves. Some researchers think that the alignment in the three main pyramids at Giza corresponds to the position of the stars in Orion's belt, but not the way they look today. This alignment actually points to a very specific time, around 10,450 BC.
That's over 12,000 years ago. That's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But why that particular date? What's so special about 10,450 BC?
That's the big mystery. It seems intentional, though, like a message encoded in stone, a message pointing to a specific moment in the distant past. It could be a marker of a really important event, maybe a time of massive change or upheaval, or maybe it's a symbolic reference to the beginning of a new cycle, a new era.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these myths and monuments could be like time capsules carrying messages across millennia. But it still makes me wonder why. Why go to all this trouble to encode these messages? What were they trying to tell us?
Well, here we're getting into the realm of speculation, but it's still fascinating to think about. Some researchers believe that these messages were intended as warnings, maybe to remind future generations about the dangers of cataclysmic events, to make sure we remember the lessons of the past. Others see them as a way to protect knowledge, to keep the wisdom and achievements of past civilizations from being lost.
It's a powerful idea, the idea that these ancient cultures were thinking on such a massive timescale, concerned about transmitting their knowledge to future generations. But here's another question that I keep coming back to. If these ancient civilizations were so advanced, why did they disappear? What happened to them?
That's a question that continues to baffle researchers. Our sources offer up several interesting possibilities. One theory is that a cataclysmic event, maybe the Younger Dryas impact or something similar, wiped out these advanced cultures. Maybe it forced humanity to essentially start from scratch.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thought. It really shows how fragile civilization can be, even with advanced knowledge and technology. But there are other theories too, right? It's not all doom and gloom.
Right. Some researchers propose that these civilizations might have chosen to withdraw from the world stage. Maybe they recognized the dangers of uncontrolled technology or the potential for ecological collapse, and they deliberately chose a simpler, more sustainable way of life.
Like a voluntary retreat. That's an interesting idea, especially in our current world where technology is changing so rapidly and there are all these worries about the future of our planet.
It certainly makes you question our assumptions about progress and whether constant technological advancement is really the only way forward. It suggests that there might be other ways to exist in the world, ways that don't necessarily lead to the kind of globalized, tech-driven society we have today.
This whole deep dive is really making me rethink how I see history and our place in the bigger picture. It's amazing to think that we might not be the first advanced civilization on this planet, and that the echoes of these lost cultures could still be reaching us through their myths, their monuments, even the landscape itself.
That's the beauty of exploring these ancient mysteries, isn't it? It forces us to question what we think we know and to be open to different perspectives. It reminds us that our understanding of the past is always changing as we uncover new evidence and find new ways to interpret the clues we're given.
So we've got evidence suggesting potential advanced civilizations in the distant past. We see intriguing connections between megalithic sites all over the globe. And there's this idea that ancient myths and monuments are actually encoding knowledge and messages for future generations. What really stands out to me is how important astronomy seems to be. This theme of precession keeps popping up in the worldview of these ancient cultures. I think we need to delve a little deeper into that if we want to understand what they were trying to tell us.
I agree. It's clear that their astronomical knowledge was about so much more than just tracking the seasons or using the stars for navigation. It's woven into their myths, their monuments, even their understanding of time itself. It seems to be at the very core of their worldview.
All right, so let's dive into that then. What can you tell us about this ancient understanding of astronomy? What about this focus on precession? What secrets might be hidden in those ancient stargazing practices?
Well, it really does seem like all of this points to a profound and ancient knowledge of astronomy in these cultures. And one of the key mechanisms for encoding and transmitting this knowledge, as we've been discussing, is this concept of precession.
Right, this slow wobble of Earth's axis that causes the stars to shift position over these huge spans of time. It's hard to wrap your head around, but it seems to have been a really important part of how ancient cultures saw the world. Why is that, do you think? What made precession so important?
It's as if they understood that up there, it's not static, the celestial realm, I mean. It's
Right.
constantly changing over these vast cycles. And they wove this understanding into their myths, monuments, even their rituals. Maybe they saw it as a reflection of the cycles they observed here on Earth, life and death, creation and destruction.
So it wasn't just some abstract astronomical phenomenon. Precession was woven into their culture. It informed their understanding of the cosmos and their place in it. That's quite a different perspective from how we tend to view things today, like our focus on linear progress and thinking of time as a straight line instead of a cycle.
Exactly. And one of the most fascinating examples of this cyclical worldview is the concept of world ages. Distinct epochs of time marked by the shifting positions of the stars due to precession.
Okay.
A lot of ancient cultures believed that these world ages were associated with specific cycles of creation and destruction, rise and fall.
Like a cosmic calendar almost, marking the grand rhythm of time and the ebb and flow of civilizations. It makes you wonder if they saw these cycles as inevitable, something to be endured and learned from, not something you could fight.
And there's evidence that these world ages weren't just abstract ideas. They might have been linked to actual events in the past. Like, remember we talked about the possibility of the Younger Dryas impact? That happened around 12,800 years ago. Some researchers think this event may have actually coincided with the end of a world age, that it forced humanity to kind of hit the reset button.
So these ancient cultures might have had knowledge of past cataclysms and encoded it in their myths and monuments as a warning for future generations. It's both fascinating and a little scary to think that they might have seen these cycles of destruction and renewal as just part of the cosmic order.
Right. It makes you think. But it also speaks to a real sense of responsibility, this desire to make sure the lessons of the past aren't forgotten. They might have believed that by preserving this knowledge, they could help future generations navigate these cycles, maybe even help them do it with more awareness and wisdom.
It's incredible to think that they might have had a more cyclical view of time than we do, understanding that history isn't a straight line, but subject to these patterns of rise and fall, creation and destruction. It really challenges our modern assumptions about progress, that idea that we're somehow immune to the forces that have shaped civilizations throughout history.
And that's a really important point. Our modern perspective often puts so much emphasis on progress and linear advancement. But these ancient cultures, it seems they understood that civilization isn't immune to the forces of nature, to these cycles of change that govern the cosmos.
It's a good reminder that even the most advanced civilizations are ultimately subject to the laws of the universe. But if they had this knowledge, and if they encoded it in their myths and monuments, what were they trying to tell us? What can we learn from their wisdom? What's the takeaway from this deep dive into ancient mysteries and lost civilizations?
That's a question each of us has to grapple with on our own, I think. But maybe the most important lesson is humility. Remembering that we're not the first advanced civilization on this planet, and remembering that we're not immune to the forces that have shaped history.
It's about understanding our place in this huge tapestry of time, being humbled by the achievements of those who came before us, but also being inspired by the possibility of leaving our own legacy for future generations, recognizing that we're part of a much bigger story, a cosmic narrative that stretches way beyond our individual lives, beyond even the span of human history as we currently understand it.
I like that. And as we continue to explore these ancient mysteries, we might find that the wisdom of the past offers valuable insights into the challenges we're facing today. Maybe by understanding the cycles of history, by paying attention to those warnings in ancient myths, we can navigate the complexities of our own time with more awareness and wisdom.
It's a call to action. It's a challenge to learn from the past so we can shape a better future. This deep dive has been an incredible journey. It's revealed these tantalizing clues about a past that's far more complex and mysterious than we ever imagined. It's made us question our assumptions, it's sparked our curiosity, and it's definitely left us with more questions than answers. But that's what makes exploring so great. It's about embracing the unknown, seeking knowledge, and always pushing the limits of our understanding.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to encourage you, our listener, to keep exploring. Dig deeper into the mysteries we've discussed, find new sources of information, and let your curiosity lead the way. The past is a vast and mysterious place, and there are still so many secrets out there waiting to be discovered.
So keep questioning, keep exploring, and never stop seeking knowledge. And if this deep dive has left you wanting more, be sure to visit us at 1337podcast.com for more mind-bending explorations of history, science, and the mysteries of the universe. Until next time, keep those brain cells firing, and remember, strength and honor, I am Spartacus.
Thanks for watching. Tap into 1337podcast.com.